Hello, and it's the last video on all the Meta platforms that we've talked about today. We started with Meta Business Suite. We then got into the world of Facebook. Then I jumped into Instagram. Now we're going to end once more looking ahead to the future of Meta. So let's look at what's happened over the last couple of years, going back to Threads. In the summer of 2023, amidst this just disastrous time for X. At that point, recently renamed X, there were rumblings that various competitors to Elon Musk's company were going to be trying to put out and race to the finish line with the new Twitter. You had um, you had companies like you had the original Twitter founder Jack Dorsey had Blue Sky that was out there already, but it was limited in how many new users they could add per month because they didn't have the capacity. Then you had rumblings that Microsoft was going to do something that never materialized. I don't even know what happened. That's the parent company for LinkedIn. And then you had good old Mark Zuckerberg who said, "Oh, I have something that's coming, but it's not ready yet." Well, next thing you know, it was ready and it was launched. Threads hit the market in, I think it was July of 2023. And similar to what we saw with Instagram and the stories and Instagram's reels, it was launched as an appendage to Instagram. And it was the fastest at the time to 100 million users. ChatGPT would kind of, or actually, no, ChatGPT was the record holder before that. It took like 3 months. And then Threads became the fastest because all you had to do, the next time you logged into Instagram, you got a little pop up that said, "Hey, check out Threads." You connected to it from there, downloaded the app, you were in. So all the barriers to entry were eliminated, and this fast growing platform of Instagram was now transposed onto Threads. And so it took about 48 hours, 100 million users, super fast. But it struggled real quick. It fell apart. Very few people were using it. But over the last 12 months or so, it has seen a nice resurgence to the point where, in terms of mobile app usage, Threads is now on level playing field with X and Twitter. Now, the web interface, because there's like almost no web, remember too, Twitter started before smartphones were super big, so people were just on the internet, like on a desktop with it. I don't think Threads is ever going to match the X Twitter traffic that you see on desktop devices. But again, mobile usage, Threads is now on the level playing field with X and Twitter, but only took them 3 years to do it. Well, I guess 4 years. Um, then in 2024, you saw Meta AI, again, competing with chat, integrated into existing platforms. It works fine, but now it's kind of like Google Gemini, where you kind of are forced to use it. It's like, oh, I want to search for someone on Instagram, and if you put a name in there, suddenly it's like Meta AI is going to give you this big long response instead. Then in 2025, uh, there was another new app called Edits, and this was a way to have more control over the editor process for a video, specifically for Reels. Again, the biggest complaint for Reels was that the in-app editor on Instagram was lacking. It had classically been, okay, the TikTok editor in the native editor in TikTok is the best. Then you had Instagrams, which was meh. You could do a couple of things, but it still was kind of limited. YouTube had like the worst shorts editor of all time. You could do almost nothing. Then YouTube suddenly skyrocketed their functionality way better, and you had Reels kind of bringing up the rear, and you had more and more people using platforms like CapCut and even Canva to edit their videos and then upload them to Instagram. So again, in an effort to get people to use more meta platforms, more time, we saw a new app edits that had all sorts of new functionality, and it works very well. But there is also it came with an added boost that if you created a video, edited it, finalized it from edits, and then published it directly to Instagram, you would get a boost. Like your videos would get a impressions and reach and engagement boost, which was the case for a while. I don't think that's the case anymore. Um, Now this year, more recently, I should say, 2026, the reverse has happened where Facebook has is starting to consolidate, and now you see the Messenger app is still alive and kicking, but now we are seeing a tightening of the ways to connect. This might be more of a focus on privacy and encryption. The messenger.com site is gone. But instead, you've got to message people through Facebook.com or just go to the Meta app or the Messenger app. So now we are seeing a narrowing of focus, whereas the last three, all these different things. So what does this all mean? I look at this as a sort of, I guess there were only two slides left. I look at this as a sort of pattern. It's a roadmap. So, Meta really remains on top through three ways. One, they look at the content consumption habits and how people are using their smartphones. They want people. I would argue the number one goal for Meta right now, if you look at from the top down, is that they want everything on their smartphones to be on a Meta platform. There was talk of a Meta smartphone coming out to compete with Apple and Google. It doesn't sound like that's actually going to happen. I think that's one battle they're not going to win, because if you think about what are the four biggest technology companies on earth, it's Apple, it's Google, it's Amazon, and it's Meta. Those are the big four. Microsoft is over there on the side dabbling but that's a whole different beast in itself. So, Meta looks at the new content consumption habits and it integrates them somehow. And as I just showed you in the last slide, it's usually utilizing Instagram for it, because I think the idea is that Instagram is a still growing ecosystem, and that is the place where they can integrate more functionality, and then if it works there, maybe they'll toss it over to Facebook. Now, an example of that, again, we've gone through those at length, but the question is going to be kind of moving forward. How is Threads going to play into this? Because I don't know if this microblogging Twitter and X thing is going to keep on keeping on, but Threads' quick ascension into serious competitor with X and Twitter is making it where I do think we may start seeing some of these new content consumption elements being actually put in there and not just on Instagram. So the second thing, though, is a lot of this happens because Meta's acquiring intellectual property, and they're buying companies. Since 2006, they've bought over 100 companies. In the last 15 years, they have acquired nearly 100 businesses. The big one was WhatsApp. That was $19 billion in 2014. But the most impactful one, clearly, Instagram in 2012, and that was just for $1 billion. But for every behemoth like that, you see these smaller companies that maybe have augmented reality technology or have like the Meta Horizon VR headset stuff. Like there's all sorts of other workaround tech that Meta owns that we don't even know about, that is being integrated into the content that we consume and the platforms that we use and the user interface that we use all the time. I would not ever bet against Meta because of this, because they're always working on something in the background. A lot of times these things fail, but a lot of times they are the reasons for these major technological advances. And before I go to the last one, I do just want to mention, there's a reason that technology advances so fast as it pertains to the internet and smartphones and AI. And that's because they can constantly iterate without as much of a fear of dire consequences. If you think about the automobile, right? There's only a couple autonomous vehicle brands out there. There's Tesla. There's I don't know. There's a couple of others that have autonomous vehicles, and you see like small pieces like lane adjustment features and adaptive cruise control being added to the cars that we drive every day. But in 2014, I read an article that said in 5 years, half of the vehicles on the road will be autonomous. It's 2026. This is just like the Facebook story that I said. And I say less than 5%. We don't see autonomous cars unless it's a Tesla right now. And that is because, technology advances so fast without any repercussions with other industries like vehicles. If autonomy goes wrong, people die. And we can't take that risk. So I think we are only going to continue to see companies like Meta widen the gap between internet technology that we see on our smartphones and how we communicate with each other every day and the things that could actually change lives or kill them. And that's kind of my thesis on here, is that like Meta can continue to iterate and test and spend all this money on acquiring these companies because they can. And there's no, yeah, sure, Zuckerberg might get called to testify before Congress, but nothing ever happens, right? He can continue to try this out, but test these new things and see what sticks. And the reason that they have all this money that they can spend, though, it's the third point, is advertising. Ads are 98% of Meta's revenue. And it has been, maybe not that much, but it's been a massive amount of the company's revenue since they went public in 2012. When Facebook started trading on the New York Stock Exchange for $35, I think it was, at their initial IPO, they did so having that was when the world learned hey, all of our money comes from ads. In 2012, they were called Facebook at the time. Facebook was making a fraction, like pennies on the dollar for what you see now, for what they make now. And it's been pretty incredible to see how they continue to do this. For Meta to remain solvent, for Meta to continue to do all this stuff, they have to keep selling ads. And to do that, you see what we've talked about over all of these videos. You see declining company page reach. You see more functionality and more features being added to the Instagram platform. And you see more platforms in general that are becoming a part of our everyday communication with each other. WhatsApp and Messenger and increased usage on Threads, things like that. So that's where we are. So if you think about, as a social media leader into the future, my first advice is always to think about what is Meta going to be doing next, and think about structuring a team, structuring a strategy, structuring how you even personally look at social media through the lens of the largest social media company in the world and what they are capable of and what could be coming next. Will the glasses be coming? Will the VR thing be coming? Who knows? But it's worth paying attention to see what all of these people here are doing, because they have been at the front of the pack for 20 years now. All of the other competitors have fallen by the wayside. And it will be interesting to see how YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, and others compete with this into the future. And that will be the next topic. Really, is what's YouTube and TikTok got going on, and how have they, how do they make it so that brands can succeed? Do they, or do they inhibit? Do they hinder? We'll find out. But again, this is meant to be a very high level strategy discussion and is meant to get you thinking about leading social media from a business perspective and from a branding perspective, what all has been going on and is going on and what will happen in the future so that you can adequately prepare yourself for what comes next.